Hey party people, Techno here, and we are once again back at the Sans Holiday Hack Challenge 2022. In the previous video, we helped Fitzy Shortstack create some Suricata rules, banish the Snow Rog, and retrieve the Tolkien Ring, the first of the 5 rings of powder that we need to retrieve to save Christmas. In this video, we're going to begin our quest to retrieve the Elfin Ring, and that's going to start off with a relatively easy challenge that revolves around GitHub repository cloning. So a nice 1 Christmas tree out of 5. And to get started on that, we are going to exit the Tolkien Ring area and head on down to the Elfin Ring area. So let's just go back out the way we initially found ourselves here. And on the way deeper into these Flobbit tunnels, you may open up your developer tools or use that zoom out trick that I showed in a previous video to see if there are any additional chests to retrieve some goodies from along the way. I was unable to find any, so I'm just going to head right into the Elfin Ring area. And we find ourselves in a pretty cool subterranean river area and a nice boat ride ahead of us. So let's just see where this boat takes us. And it looks like Bo 9 Candle here is out on a platform in the middle of this river enjoying some fishing, but also struggling with this GitHub repo cloning problem on this Cranberry Pie terminal. So let's log in and see what the challenge that awaits us actually is. So what we have here is we just need to clone a repo, and we have a command git clone and then a repository URL. So it says this should be easy, right? Thing is, it doesn't seem to be working. This is a public repository though. I'm so confused. Please clone the repo and cat the readme file, then use this run to answer command and tell us the last word of the readme file. Pretty straightforward. So depending on your familiarity with GitHub repo cloning, this may catch you off guard a little bit. Maybe not. In my opinion, this was one of the, this probably was the easiest challenge in all of the Sans Holiday Hack Challenge 2022. But again, there's a little bit of nuance here that depending on how familiar you are with Git, might throw a curveball at you. But what we actually have here, that what is Bo is trying to clone, is trying to clone this repo via SSH. This URL is in the format for cloning via SSH, and to do that, you would have to have a valid public key for that repo to perform that cloning action. So the first thing we might check is, does Bo in fact have a public key that can be used to clone this repo? And we see that we do have an SSH directory, so let's go ahead and cd into that and see what's there. Looks like what we have here is just a public-private key pair for SSH, but in any case, we can try to connect to this git at hogfactory.com over SSH and see what happens. And to do that, we're going to use SSH, tac capital T, and I'll throw in a couple V's for some verbose output, and then git at hogfactory.com. So just glancing through the initial output that we have here, it would appear that SSH is looking for a valid config or keys and is not finding any. But in any case, we do have the option to attempt to continue connecting. And to do so, we're going to have to accept the SSH host key fingerprint for this domain. So let's go ahead and say yes. And then we see that this ultimately fails with a permission denied related to the public key. So it looks like Bo probably does not have a valid public key to clone this repo. However, there are other ways to clone a public repo, and one of those would be HTTPS. In fact, if we go back to our badge along the way, we did pick up a hint regarding this challenge, and that is going to be HTTPS get cloning. So it's likely that this is exactly what we need to do. So there's a consistent format, as the hint says, for GitHub repositories cloned via HTTPS. Try converting that. So I think we're on the right path with downloading this via HTTPS. So let's jump back in here and let's take a closer look at the way this URL is structured. So for an SSH repository URL, we of course have the username. This would relate to the username on the public key. And then we have the domain, in this case, hogfactory.com. So the domain where this repository is located Following that, we have a colon, and then we have the repo account. So we have a snowball is the account name, and then finally a /, and the particular repository or project that we're looking for is AWS_scripts. Now, to reformat this into HTTPS, it's pretty straightforward. If you're not familiar with this, there's tons of resources on the web. Just a quick Google search will probably supply the answer, or even just browsing around github.com and looking at the different URL formats, it's pretty apparent as to how this needs to be restructured to perform the clone. But in any case, we start with the same command. So we're going to do a git clone, and of course an HTTPS / to start this off. And then we would follow that up with the domain. So in this case, this hogfactory.com. Now, here's the main difference. Whereas SSH has a colon separating the account from the domain, in HTTPS URL, of course, we're going to have a / again, and then that account name, and finally another / to state the project that we want to clone. AWS_scripts, and then we'll finish that off with a .git. And it looks like that worked. We were able to clone the repo. Right there we have that repository, and let's cd into that, where we should find our README file. And indeed we do have one. So let's get the last line of that README file, and then we should have our answer. And it looks like the last word is going to be maintainers. So let's issue that run to answer command. And it's asking us for the last word. And we are checking, and that's correct. So pretty straightforward, pretty easy challenge there. However, this does play into the challenges we're going to see ahead in the Elfin Ring room. So yeah, that's it for this one. In the next video, we'll of course progress in our quest to retrieve the Elfin Ring, tackle the next challenge that we